Now I finally caught it. I'm breathing your life inside of mine. I finally caught it. I feel it. You've got my...
Welcome back to the Lighthouse, episode 5. Special shout out this week. I know, another week of special shout outs, but there's another reason for it. We're celebrating Memorial Day today, and so we got to do a special shout out to all of our military personnel, past and present, any law enforcement that's out there. Man, we really appreciate everything that you do to protect and serve. So thank you. Hope you're enjoying your day today. In week 5, I want to take a look in the book of Mark again. We're going to look in chapter 3. And the word of encouragement this week is centered around, I think it's appropriate, on a day off, on a holiday, where you should be relaxing and recharging, that there is someone else that is working for you. And I want to take a look at something specific that jumped out at me and what we can take into the rest of this week to help us charge up and have an awesome week. So let's look at chapter 3. There's 2 scenes. The first scene builds up and gets us ready for the final scene of the chapter. The first scene paints a picture of Jesus' ministry, everything that he's doing, and the large amounts of people that are following him. Great description that we're going to see. And then it sets up the second scene of when his mother and his brothers, so his family comes on, and they have a message for Jesus, and there's something encouraging that we can take out of that. So let's start in chapter 3 and look at stop. This is going to be stop number 2 for Jesus on the day. In verse 7, it says, Jesus went out to the lake with his disciples, and a large crowd followed him. They came from all over. Fast forward to verse 9, it says, Jesus instructed his disciples to have a boat ready so the crowd would not crush him. Right away gives you a great visual of just the masses that are out to try to follow Jesus. In verse 10, it says, he had healed many people that day, so all the sick people eagerly pushed forward to touch him. So just understand and visualize what's happening here. There are so many people that Jesus, it says, was worried that the crowds would crush him, so he pushes off the shore into a boat so he can continue to deliver the message that he needs to deliver. We're going to fast forward to the end of the chapter. Jesus now is in a home, and he's continuing to speak to people, continuing to perform miracles. And it says in verse 31, then Jesus' mother and brothers came to see him. They stood outside and sent word for him to come out and talk with them. There was a crowd sitting around Jesus, and someone said, your mother and your brothers are outside asking for you. Jesus replied, who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Then he looked at those around him and said, look, these are my mother and brothers. Anyone who does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. Now let's first of all just understand again the scene and the setting of what's happening here. In this chapter, we see 3 stops at least from what Jesus did that day. The first part that we read talks about Jesus being on the lakeside. He's on the shore, and he's going to deliver a message. He's going to preach to a large crowd. But it says that there were so many people that he had already healed that day. So he was doing work earlier in the day. That was potentially stop 1 for him. Stop 2 for him, event 2 for him, is this message that he's delivering on the lakeside. And it says that there were just masses of people pressing in to just get healed or to hear the word that he had to deliver. And then stop 3, he's in a house and he's continuing to do more work there, and his mother and his family shows up. And what do they say? And what I visualized here was, man, Jesus has been going nonstop all day long. His family gets word, and they see and they hear about what's happening. And as any good parent would do, they say, you know what? I'm worried about his health. I'm worried about his safety. I need to go intervene. So maybe this is, for the best intentions from Jesus' family, an intervention of sorts that they're planning. They're planning to go intervene. They're planning to say, Jesus, you don't see it. You can't help yourself. We're going to step in and make sure that you get some rest. We're going to make sure that you sit down and have a good meal. And so what is Jesus' response? Because I think when you first read this, potentially it can seem insensitive that he's minimizing the relationship with his mother. He's minimizing the importance of the relationship with his siblings. He says, send word back that I'm sitting with my brothers and sisters. right here. I'm sitting with my family. And what we need to focus on here is really the message that Jesus is trying to deliver, which is not one of minimizing the importance of his blood relatives, but how important he sees me and you. How important he sees all believers that are out there. He says, anybody that does the will of God, I consider a brother. I consider a sister. I consider a mother. It's hard for us to comprehend that because it's not a worldly type of love. That's a heavenly type of love. It's a preview of what we have when we go to heaven. It's a preview for the love that occurs in the relationship that we have with Jesus. He says, anybody that does God's will, anybody who believes, I consider you to be that close of a relationship with me. I consider you a brother of mine. If you can think about any relationship that you have with a parent or a sibling or a cousin or even a friend, that you hold them so dearly and they hold you so dearly, what Jesus is saying is anybody who believes, anybody that does God's will, that is the level that I love you. That's the opportunity that we have to have this relationship with Jesus. Man, that's the first word of encouragement this week, is that Jesus loves you so much that it's the same thing that you would experience with a parent or a sibling. And that's a great thing. That's an awesome thing that we should celebrate and take into this week. The second thing I want us to look at that I think is so encouraging this week is the great lengths that Jesus goes to pursue us, the great lengths that he goes to develop that relationship with us. What have we already seen here in the chapter? We've already seen that he's gone, at least what's recorded, 3 different events in a single day. None of those events are for him to go to the spa. None of those events are for him to go golfing. None of those events are for him to sit back on the couch and just get some me time. All of those events are for other people. They're for you. They're for me. They're for the people of that time. He was constantly trying to reach people. 3 separate events of where he was pouring himself out. These healings, these speakings, everything that he was doing, these miracles, and they required a ton of energy. Just think about that. Now, obviously, Jesus being who he is, he had the energy. He had the ability to pour this out. Hard for us to relate to, and his family, hard for them to relate to that, because that is not a human type of love that anybody could pour out. But the song Waymaker, I think, describes it so well. What we see here is an example that Jesus never stops working, man. He goes to such great lengths to pursue us, to have a relationship with us. He puts in double time. He puts in triple time. Man, Jesus works overtime just to have a relationship with me and with you. The word of encouragement this week is not only do we have an opportunity to have a relationship with Jesus and he holds us as dearly as he would a blood relative, but he never stops working, man. He never stops working for us. His whole mission was to come here. His whole mission to this day is to continually pursue a relationship with us. And all we need to do is recognize that. All we need to do is say, yeah, Jesus, what an awesome opportunity. I'm ready to take you up on that. So I hope this week that not only would you be encouraged by this word, man, but that you would take your relationship with Jesus to the next level and meet him where he's at so that he can continue to do work in your life. And I hope you enjoyed episode 5, and I hope to see you back here again in episode 6. Have an awesome week.
Life inside of mine, I finally caught